Hello to all. I'm here today in something a little lower tier than usual, in the tier 5 Premium French Destroyer Siroco. This was given out as a bit of a reward as part of the French Destroyers release campaign a while back now, knocking off some snowflakes, so here's today featuring a bit of a low tier premium. We're on the map Haven. It's a standard battle, sadly. Thankfully no carrier, and I'm the only destroyer. Along with the Mutsuki on the other side, we're bottom tier in a tier 5 to 7 match, so this should be quite difficult. So the Siroco is a bit different from her tier mate, the Jaguar, I want to say, in that she's basically the tier 4 equivalent ship on the French line. I don't recall the name off the top of my head, but placed a tier higher, and unlike her tier mate, she has access to main battery reload booster, which normally only becomes accessible at what's it called? At tier 6 with the Gepard. She has 4 guns in an AB XY layout, so 2 super firing forward, 2 super firing aft. Turret traverse is quite slow. Speed-wise, she handles nicely at about 32-33 knots, and with a 20% engine boost, or 20% French engine boost, so she gets access to the high tier engine boost, she can get up to quite a hefty speed at just about 40 knots. Now of course what makes and breaks this ship, with its standard HE, like 1900 HE, and standard AP of 2300 alpha AP, is the main battery reload booster. It temporarily halves your reload, so you go from your 5.4 second reload to 2-ish seconds, or closer to 3-ish seconds I would say, which allows you to produce a quick burst of damage. Health-wise, she's unimpressive, but this is a tier 5 of course. But she's unimpressive especially for French destroyers. The Jaguar, for example, I believe has an extra 3,000 hit points over her at tier 5. The tech tree tier 5 has about 3,000 hit points over her, which is a substantial amount. But she does have that French damage queuing, which means she does resist damage from penetrations quite significantly after she becomes saturated, and in addition, she is fairly maneuverable. So she is an up-tiered tier 4, so she is squishy for sure, but she's fun. Now the low HP can make putting damage out quite difficult, because her concealment at 6.0 is not exactly excellent. She has to deal with the likes of the Kamikaze clones / Fujin at her tier. The Mutsuki in this game, for example, I believe has about 5 point... I want to say it's about Kagero's, so like 5.3, 5.4 concealment, so he beats me out by a substantial amount. Torpedo tube wise, as you can see me hovering the range, she gets 7 kms, so you get a 1 kilometer stealth firing range, which is more than I can say, or better than I can say for a lot of tier 5 destroyers that aren't Japanese actually. So you do get a small stealth fire window, as long as you're careful. Plenty of targets here, but I think I'm going to favor egregious. He has hydro, but he might turn... I think he's going to turn outward. So I'm going to hold off on my second tube, and if he turns outward, I think he'll land about like there, so I'm going to push away. My team has spotted the Mutsuki, so I popped my engine boost as I was making that torpedo maneuver. Don't want to stray too close to the semi-armor piercing shells of the Egregious, which are extremely potent against French destroyers. Basically HE shells that can't set fires, but in return have enormous alpha, so not something I want to tango with. Torpedo tubes are pretty average reload, as you can see. 2 triple tubes, 75 second reload, so nothing to write home about. For tier 5 torpedo though, the 1200 damage and 57 knots is pretty meh, but they're kind of hard to see. They stopped just short of the Egregious there. He stopped moving forward. Pretty meh torpedoes overall, but they're more of a supplementary weapon if you can get away with it. Of course I am bottom tier here, so I'm going to be using my torpedoes a little more than I would otherwise, because I can't really risk gunning or open water gunfighting with something like a Miyoko, for example, with her enormous Japanese HE alpha. Just wouldn't be advisable. got a brief glimpse of where he was heading before he faded into concealment, so I'm gonna try torping. My team's doing most of the work, just scouting mainly. I want to find that Mitsuki, but no dice so far. Miyoko has fairly slow turret traverse, so if I can ascertain that he's not looking at me and it looks like his turrets are turned this way, I might be able to get some cheeky pot shots off on him as he crests the corner. Oh, no, his guns are in fact turned this way, and my prediction torps missed. However, I'm about to crest this corner, so I'm gonna fire, briefly get detected, put some damage onto the table, and become undetected. If he fires again, I might actually engage him. I'll pop my main battery reload booster here. Just want to. I have plenty of charges here. Doesn't seem like I'm going to find the Mitsuki anytime soon. So I want to have my reload. He's been set off alight by one of my allies. I will also set him alight. Gotta be careful here, not to turn away too much. Switching to armor piercing, he's giving broadside for this last stab. I'm gonna slow down to try and get this shot off. Not a clear shot for me. Mitsuki gets spotted. I get one extra AP pen, and AP does pen a little harder than HE pens, so well worth in my case. I anticipate he's going to try and full turn, but in case he glides through, just torp again. Nothing else to torp right now, the tubes are up, short cooldown, he looks like he's beaching, so those are going to miss. Mitsuki at the edge of my range, he's beached. He's going to reverse. Nothing can threaten me here, so I'm going to full stop. You can see, unlike me, he takes a lot of damage, and that's their only destroyer dispatched. Miyoko trying to crest this corner here. He's reversing out. I can't hit him. That piece of terrain is a bit too high for me. At this point, I'm gonna have to do some work to get onto the table, or get onto the scoreboard. The game is quickly coming to a close as my team kind of slaughters all the ones that push up in, while the rest of them are not pushed up, as you can see. I think I'm gonna take a risk, go around the corner, take the shorter path towards the Miyoko. He does get dispatched by my Atlanta. And I'm gonna push toward the enemy through the shortest possible route through the center. I want that battleship cluster. Remember, I can stealth torp, so even though my torps don't hit that hard, they are supplemental damage. I haven't done that much in this match so far, but playing very cautiously because I'm bottom tier as the only destroyer. Now, they haven't needed my spotting that much. They're just recklessly pushing forward very boldly, but nevertheless, it does pay off to be cautious. Just like the French cruisers, the French destroyers are quite potent in the late game when all the ships are spread out because there's less chance of being focus fired, and it's very easy to dodge with the good handling, especially with the 20% speed boost running. Egregious falls into cover, so now it's just a Pensacola. Pensacola, just like me, has big floaty arcs. I'm gonna try and get an early cheeky fire on him. As you can see, I'm leading quite significantly at this range, close to the edge of my range. Want to get a fire, I have to give quite a bit of broadside in order to use all four of my rifles. Egregious is still behind that rock, so the only one who can trade fire with me potentially is the Pensacola. Do is set my fire. I'm going to switch to AP at 10 kilometers, however this is low tier French AP. At high tiers, French AP becomes quite potent. However, I'm going to try out the AP anyway. I'm not sure I can do this precisely, but we're about to find out. Oh, I'll never know because my AP splashes into the water. Switch back to high explosive. A couple of those battleships at long range did take some shots at me, but because I'm moving quite fast and I'm quite a small target, you'll note this is very tugboat-like in appearance. Egregious crests the corner, so time to angle gets a sap. Fade into concealment. He's firing armor piercing anyway, and the shells glide past me onto the side. So very small, but maneuverable little tugboat. Now finally, some high tier targets for us. These are the last few ships on the team. I'm gonna switch to tubes. Don't want to give too much warning if he's using priority target. Colorado is my first target of choice. He's higher tier, so he's gonna give better experience. Not that I'm actually farming experience, but, you know, just on principle. Besides, he appears to be sailing a little closer. He crests into range. I want to give least possible reaction time, so we're going to drop them actually at a little bit closer range. Switch my target back to the Texas first. Texas fires. Seems like a good opportunity to try and set a fire. Now, the Colorado has high tier plating, or higher tier plating 25, which basically shatters my destroyer HE, so I'm gonna target the Texas first. He's lower tier, gonna face tank that Colorado AP. I am still shattering some of my shells on a Texas, as I expend what's left of my reload booster. However, I am getting some pens, whereas I would get a whole bunch of shatters if I shot this Colorado. Do connect 3 torpedoes with the Colorado. He floods. He's turning out, so at this close range I'm going to switch to high explosive. Angling for the AP salvo, he still hasn't switched to high explosive. American high explosive is unimpressive, but if you're being attacked by a destroyer like this at close range, no reason not to use it. I'm going to fire 2 salvos of AP and then I'm going to switch back to HE, because at this point his damage control should have ran out. Getting some decent pen damage there, as you'll see. I know he flooded now, so now I'm going for my permafire. My tubes are about to come back up as well, thanks to the relatively short reload. Launch 1, just white lining, and I'm going to predict that he turns back in, so I'm going to ignore the white line this time. Get my permafire. That's some nice permafire on tier 7 damage right there. At this point he's basically dead, double fired, but I'm going to make sure Colorado has a fairly powerful heal. Pop my speed boost. You can see he's shattering most of my shells, torpedo hits him on the nose. Switch my ire back to the Texas. Nice 50k damage game as a bottom tier destroyer. Cute little ship here. Just very standard French gameplay, but it's made a little more difficult because unlike most French destroyers, your hit point pool is quite small. So you have to be very careful about who can shoot you when you open up. You play very much, even though you're a destroyer and you have relatively good destroyer stats, you play very much more like a super light cruiser, which happens to be very potent against destroyers than anything else. Anyhow, not the spiciest of gameplay, but we do manage to scrape out 55,000 damage in a bottom tier game with 101 shell hits, 4 torpedo hits, 1 ship destroyed, 5 fires, and a flood, and 4 spotting ribbons. That is a lot of missions. Did they open a directive set? Anyway. Anyhow, middle of the team. Not too bad though, considering I'm middle tier. I am the highest ranked tier 5, so that's something. I'm well above my Omaha and New York, for example. So, not unhappy with that. So that was a Siroco. Cute little tier 5. And if you want to compare, as I was mentioning, to the tech tree, the Jaguar at tier 5, if you look here, so she has one more gun. You can see A, B, and then X, Y, Z set up. So a centerline turret, she also has to give a lot of broadside. She has a 2 triple, looks like. So 2 centerline triples, so same torpedo broadside. However, if you look at her survivability, on stock hull, she has 12,800. This is without a captain, of course. I'm running survivability expert, which is giving at this tier about an extra, just about an extra 1,800 hit points. If I click here, and you get the upgraded hull, she gets a stock hit points of 16,600, which would give her something like 18,000 hit points in comparison to my upgraded 13,900. So she is up she's up about 4k HP on me, and she's up a gun, so definitely a big difference. Now, I have reload booster, she doesn't, so she doesn't have that same burst damage as I do, but the Siroco is definitely a mixed bag of trade-offs in comparison to the Jaguar. Still though, fragile but decent boat. And pretty damn fun, and her default camo looks pretty spicy. You can see that false wave onto the bow. 62 mil, 62 marker, and in the alternative scheme, she looks like this, which is not a bad look either. I honestly kind of like the light blue. think I might keep that on. Makes that false wave stand out much more. And she also has access to this reward camo, which makes her quite pretty. But I prefer something a little slightly more conservative, so I'm gonna mount that onto her. Anyhow, just a quick review for today. So this is the Siroco. Concealment wise, 6.0, maneuverability 33 knots, no AA, no tier 5 destroyers have AA, so don't even think about it. The torpedo tubes, as I mentioned, 57 knots, 7 kilometers of speed, and 550mm tubes. They're not bad, but not great. And then the 4 guns performed adequately, but not fantastically. We'll queue one more just for the sake of getting some consistent gameplay to show you several games over time, so you have a good idea of what you can expect out of her. But yeah, she's a cheap reward premium, and I quite enjoy her. Bottom tier yet again, matchmaker telling me that it doesn't like me. 4 destroyers per side this time actually, and this time there's going to be some tier 7s to contend with. Thankfully for me, just a mass, so he's quite easy to spot out. But there's going to be a Fushan and a Galant to deal with, which are going to be not quite so easy. So we're going to have our work cut out for us, certainly. Standard battle yet again on 2 brothers, spawning on the east side. So let's think about what we're going to do here. I guess we'll just start off. We don't have a big concealment disadvantage against anyone except the Galant, I'm fairly certain. Nothing too scary in the way of destroyers. There is a King George V, which is going to be annoying to deal with his high explosive. But outside of that, we're fairly safe. You can see that tumble home hull, that tumble home shape showing itself on the rear. Very French. Let me zoom in nice up and close. Looks like some loading cranes, some storage racks. Some nice detail onto the model. You can see these are open-faced French turrets, classic French bridge clock. There's some fairly nice detail on this model, even though it is just a tier 5. But anyhow, shilling aside, I'm not sponsored or run the CC program or anything, so don't need to be showing you any of that. My allies ping out some squares. Don't know if they have RPF or if they're just saying they think the enemy is there, but we will head there anyway. We're gonna do our best job to scout. My speed is kind of low for a French destroyer, but having access to that high tier 20% speed boost does alleviate much of that. I'm with a Mahonigan. He is using the Farragut loadout, I believe. Oh no, he's using the Benson loadout. So you can see he only has the 2 forward guns and he doesn't have any other guns, which tells me he's using the 9.8 kilometer or 9.2 kilometer Benson torpedoes. This is, of course, Benson, like the full upgraded Benson torpedoes on a tier 6 hull, so it's a pretty funny build, but having only 2 guns kind of sucks, so can't say I recommend it necessarily. It's funny though. We do spot a destroyer. Not going to speed boost here because he is going to pass by that Fushan, that is. He's going to pass by that rock before I can continue shooting. Land 2 with my shells, he's going to disengage. I know he has DWTs, but more dangerously, there's a KGV there. They were mostly behind smoke, so I was considering firing, but then the New Orleans crested the corner. As I pass this corner, though, I can consider firing, but I'm going to still be in the firing arc of the Normandy and New Orleans, so a bit risky. I'll take that shot there from concealment. I do want to engage Fushan. I believe I beat him out in concealment by a little bit. He's probably around, he's a Nevny hull, remember, so he's, Nevny I think is 6'4", I want to say. However, rounding the corner like this means I don't have any real concealment advantage. Let's see if this New Orleans crests that corner the way he is now. I expect him to turn up and away. So at this point I'm going to turn away, can't do anything here. If I charge in, that Fushin's gonna spot me. As you can see, as predicted, he's turning up and away. So those torps are gonna miss sadly, but that's fine. They were just speculative zoning torps in case you did push the corner or keep going forward. Circling around, you can see my turrets take a little bit to traverse. They are slow French turrets. No, I'm actually surprised they turn that quickly for French turrets. Come on, Monaghan guy. I know you don't have smoke either, so don't bump me. I'm gonna slow down, let him pass me. You can see, even though this French speed boost is a great consumable in terms of how much speed it gives, it doesn't last very long at this tier. About to crest this corner again, so let's see if we can get a cheeky fire. No one can really shoot me except this Dallas, but I'm gonna fall into concealment. Gunbloom does spot me. Let's see if I can get some HE. You can see the range is actually quite good for a tier 5, 11.8 gun range. But it does also mean you have big Gunbloom. At range shells are very floaty. These are the lightweight French shells. You don't get access to the heavyweight French shells until tiers 8 in the tech tree at the Fantasque. There's open watering. Get a fire onto the Dallas and break his rudder. He's probably going to damage control that, unfortunately for me, but all is well. Smoke pops up for some reason, which tells me Fushan, I suppose, is in the area. Oh, Normandy firing high explosive at me. However, he ducks into the smoke, so I'm still spotted when I fire. It tells me the Fushan is open water. And just try for a cheeky fire. Normandy fired already. I become undetected well. I still have Gunbloom, which means the Fushan ducked into his smoke screen. Just taking my time, scouting, zoning. The enemy is trying to respond to my allies who went through the center. Holding onto my reload boost because I still want to engage the Fushan with it if I can catch him off guard. I'm gonna fire as I crest this corner, able to fire one salvo off from concealment thanks to that piece of cover which covers me here. It's trees and shrubbery. Putting shells into the superstructure looking for a fire. Now I'm not going to be able to surprise the Fushan because I'm firing openly. But fire is a fire. So I get my fire onto the Normandy, he takes a torpedo, it's probably going to flood him, which is probably going to prompt a damage control. So when he pops out on the other side of this, since he is still damage controlling, I am going to pop my reload booster to try and take a fire in case he charges at me. Just dump my fish. Now he crests the corner. Remember, have to stay quite broadside to keep all 4 guns online. Pop my speed boost in order to enhance my maneuverability. He turns in, which of course screws the aim on my first few shells. But I'm running reload booster. You can see me full stopping here just to stay on target. There's my follow-up fire. 2 follow-up fires. And this guy's gonna crisp quite nicely thanks to that reload booster. I haven't taken any damage yet, so I can afford to just play around with him. I'm full stopping again, even though I appear to accelerate. Trying to juke the shells. However, he does wait for me to full stop, so I probably should have just re-accelerated. He does miss, however, because he's firing with just 1 gun in French dispersion. Quickly racking up some fire damage onto him. I'm gonna continue to pressure him because no one's pressuring me, so I don't really care. It's all about positional awareness. KGB is not shooting at me either, and if he does, I'll just accelerate out of the way. Slow KGB shells. Dodge those shells simply by accelerating forward. He's presenting more broadside this time, so he might hit me with this salvo. That's quite fine. Looks like he got his damage control back up, or the fire stick out. Either way, he's pretty crippled at this point, so even without the help of my allies, we'll get him. I'm gonna let this fire tick. He has reload coming up now anyway. You can see me taking some damage, but with the saturation mechanics and the heavy saturating ability of the battleship-sized HE shells, I'm already quite saturated. Instead of fire, which he's not damage controlling, slowing down here with the speed boost. Juke that shell shot. That does allow him to land a follow-up shot, however, so don't... Against people who stagger their salvos like this, a bit less effective, but still decent. He's healing to fight that single fire. Still trying to put him down. As you can see, the 4 guns, in spite of having good fire chance, are relatively anemic. Gonna beach myself here in order to throw off his aim. And we do dispatch him with our fire. Our 3rd permanent fire of the game does more or less burn him down. 1 speed was expended, a lot of my HP. Now remember, if I was a Jaguar, I would be at about 8,000. Instead, I'm at 4,000, so does have some trade-offs being the premium ship. Oh. Okay, so my turrets are still turning. You can see it's slowish turret traverse, but I know there's a gallant right in front of me. Don't want to reload boost yet because I want to reload boost with all 4 rifles. Destroyer definitely is tempting though. He's turning out. He's gonna pass a rock, but it is too good of an opportunity not to shoot. Even if I only get 3 salvos off, it's not bad. Get some decent damage onto him. We're already up to 40k, most of that is Normandy of course, but switch to armor piercing. I don't think I have the penetration power to beat the New Orleans at this range, but we'll see. New Orleans does actually have substantial belt armor against tier 5 guns. Missed my first salvo, so much for that experiment. No citadels, but decent pen damage. He's firing high explosive, turn in slightly. Oh, he's firing at Plana, 1200 there. Switch back to high explosive, there's a destroyer in front of me. It's a Nicholas. It's quite a bit higher HP than me, so I'm gonna have to play this trade right. Torpedoing between salvos because I don't have the reload booster up, so my burst is not that high. Set of fire. I want to stay at speed with this trait though, so even though I'm speed juking this first salvo, want to re-accelerate. Now in a destroyer on destroyer trait, or in most traits in general, you want to turn away, you don't want to be the one chasing. It's easier to dodge shells when you're running than when you're running and being chased than when you're the one doing the chasing. Do set a follow-up fire, dodge out on the rest of that NOLA HE, and we should be good to go. Slide behind this island, fall into concealment, and we'll be just fine. Now in the meantime, my team is not doing so hot in terms of not dying, so we're in a complicated game state, let's just say. Predictive torps were for the Nicholas, 100%, but if the New Orleans slides into these 12,000 damage torpedoes, I'd be very happy. Unfortunately, they range out. Probably would have dodged the majority of the salvo anyway, but nice to see. They're contesting my cap. I kind of need these guys to push. I'm the only one defending this flank now. The Fusion in Dallas in my base, so I really need these guys to accelerate the pace of their advance. New Orleans looks like he's going to turn in to face the enemy. Thankfully the Fusion drops, so that's the hardest opponent for the New Mexico to deal with. So maybe my allied New Mexico can also deal with the Dallas, that'd be great. Nicholas smokes up. I'm approaching the KGB, waiting for him to kind of commit into his turn. Now note there's a piece of terrain beside me, so it's not going to be easy. Gonna expect him to commit into his turn. Fubuki does detonate enemy Fuso, that's great. Playing at range as a scout now, can't be quite as reckless. Now KGB has horrifically slow turret traverse, so if he turns the other way, I will try for a fire. My turrets are turned. Looks like he's committed to the path. I didn't quite anticipate the turn correctly, so they're under lead. I'll wait for the KGB to fire. My torpedoes don't quite hit him. Reconsidering firing now because they're all kind of here. Don't want to take fire from the New Orleans. Still though, maybe I can, if I can approach a little closer in spite of my short detection range, eliminating the Nicholas should secure the game. So even though the KGB is quite a bit closer, the Nicholas is the priority target. maybe I think in this situation I'll wait for my torpedo tubes first. KGV burns down my Normandy. He's moving out and away from me, so instead this New Orleans is a better prospect. Nicholas pops up. Not going to get a better opportunity to eliminate him. It's a pop main battery reload booster. Have at it. It's turning out now. Unfortunately, I don't quite get him. I beached myself. But he decides to fire back for some god-awful reason, so I have the chance to eliminate him. Just looking for one shell, and then I'm going to cease fire immediately. I know I only had to land one, so I cease fire and slide back into darkness, hopefully, before the New Orleans can turn his turrets. Let's see how the predictive torps on the New Orleans are. They're looking pretty good if they have range. He's slowing. Oh, he's lucky. He just managed to range them out. But you can see the concept. For now, on the Siroco, my torps are 7 kilometers, but later they become 8 kilometers, and then I think 9 kilometers, so quite the hefty impact. KGB is basically in front of me, but I'm going to stay on the New Orleans. He's almost dead, so I would like to collect that kill. KGB sending British HE my way. So now the game is kind of out of my hands. I think he was a bit too close to me, or I got a bit too close to him rather. It's possible, instead of killing the New Orleans, I could have disengaged. If you see here from my corpse, I'm still just in concealment range just now, and he was further away. So I could definitely have disengaged in a concealment range, but not a bad impact for a bottom tier game. Didn't land any of my torps, unfortunately, but on principle, we were still getting to see where you want to just about put those torpedoes in order to be effective. Fuso and Alba versus a KGV. So KGV has a pretty marked advantage. He auto bounces the Fuso's shells as long as he angles, and he doesn't take that much HE damage from the Alba because the Alba just doesn't have that much HE DPM. So even 2 versus 1, he has pretty significant advantage here. All he has to do is kind of turn and run, and you should slowly burn them down. But if the Alba is able to set him repeatedly on fire, and the KGV, and the Fuso smartens up and probably just switches to HE and functions as a very large cruiser, I reckon the KGV actually has a pretty bad matchup. So it's kind of up to how my 2 allies played. With the way low tier ships are though, I reckon what's going to happen is that the Alba is going to quickly find himself dispatched by the KGV. Either AP or HE will do it. He's probably not going to take a fire because he's pretty much full health. He switches to armor piercing for the Alba very smartly. Punches him right for the face because at this tier, 14-inch shells on the KGV still overmatch cruisers. And the Fuso is going to continue to fire armor piercing, which is normally like a good ammunition choice, but in this case, because it doesn't overmatch very well, he needs the KGV to under angle for it to work. Now he did get a pretty sizable chunk out of the KGV there, thanks to the KGV's poor firing angles. Let's see if these Alba's predictive torps can hit him. He's in line to take maybe this one, if they're in range, but sadly they're far out of range. Alba's dead this next KGV salvo, leaving a Fuso in a 1v1. Alba unable to find the fire. That's Alba dead right there. At this range, there's no dodging. That should be fairly easy for the KGV to clean this up, so sadly it's probably looking like a loss. See if I can get my ally to support my theory crafting. Of course, as I say, he's not going to give side. This idiot KGV does just do exactly that. Shoots HE into my Fuso's nose. He damage controls immediately, which is questionable at best, but he does re-angle, but it would have been flat enough that AP probably could have penetrated. I'd probably say you need all 6 guns to do this. The guy makes a fair point. In 1 minute, I don't think the KGB can kill the Fuso, and we're up on points, so maybe we win just by timing out. You right, enemy. So KGB exposing his broadside, risking it all to try and finish it in a minute. Hopefully my Fuso doesn't give broadside, because if he switched to AP and he's trying to bait, then we're going to be in trouble. HE again, Fuso just slowing down. Now the Fuso, even though he's a tier 6 and covered in 25mm armor, is actually somewhat HE resistant. He's covered in 25 here at the bow, 25 here at the stern, but this middle section is, I believe, 38mm, which is, while not being enough to shatter the quarter pen HE shells of the KGB, does shatter basically most cruiser HE at the tier. 38 is sufficient to shatter even 203mm HE, so that's 8-inch guns. So normally, the Fuso is actually fairly HE resistant for a ship of its tier. It takes a lot of HE spam and mainly just the fires rather than the HE alpha itself to punch through it, but in terms of this game, he does manage to survive long enough just by playing fairly smartly to get it done. And thankfully, for me, we get to watch that duel play out. The Fuso stays nice and angled, never gives broadside. This KGB was shooting AP earlier, if you'll recall, so it's not exactly the biggest moron I've ever seen. Just did a pretty good job holding it out, so I will give him a compliment. But anyhow, 56,000 damage, bottom tier yet again, 145 shell hits, no torpedo hits sadly. 4 end caps, 3 kills, 8 fires, and 3 spotting movements team score wise. Second from the top, pretty bad game. This KGB just killed my whole team from the looks of the base experience. He's on a losing side, so he's missing a 50% modifier on his experience. He should be sitting about at something like 1800, 1900 if he was on my team, and he'd won. Detailed report wise, mostly damage on the Normandy, but also some chip damage on the various targets from taking those pot shots. Anyhow, that was the Siroco over 2 games. A fun little tier 5. Now I got 2 pretty bottom tier matches, so I didn't get to do any DD bullying, but you can see the reload booster is an extremely powerful consumable and allows you to take trades you really shouldn't be able to take in a 13,000 HP tier 5 destroyer, but that coupled with the high tier speed boost mean that Siroco ends up being a cute little package. Definitely a fun one, and if you have her in reports, even if you're not huge on French destroyers, I'm not like a big fan. I'm on the Valentin right now, as you can see, with my 13-point captain. But if you have her in report, she's a fun one to take out. Consumable wise, just take premium everything, but in order: damage control, reload booster, speed boost. But all 3 are pretty important. And then I take main armaments, propulsion, and main battery accuracy. This thing doesn't have AA anyway, so even if you had the option, I wouldn't take it. Captain wise, I moved my captain over to the Valentin. I'm running 13-point captain using Philippe Abigneur. Abigneur. I can't pronounce that word, but anyway, the main point of running Philippe, other than his personalizations, which are Sparks of the Resistance, which gives you extra fire chance when you capture caps, extra speed when you take potential damage, and when you dev strike, you get a increased your reload. But the main point of taking Philippe Abigneur on your destroyers is, of course, the improved survivability expert, which gives plus 400 per tier instead of plus 350 as per normal. But anyway, build-wise, preventative maintenance, survivability expert, preventative maintenance, last stand, survivability expert, then concealment expert, then go back for your BFT, and then from here I would probably go RPF back into expert marksman. You didn't see it too much this game because I was pretty much just turning my whole ship in because the Siroco was a stubby little ship, if you compare the Van Klin to the Siroco, for example, you'll notice that the Van Klin is noticeably larger. She's several tiers higher, of course, but the Van Klin is a huge destroyer. But anyhow, as I was mentioning, the turret reverse on French destroyers is pretty sluggish, and since they're low caliber guns, 139s for the most part, you get that full 2.5% improved turret reverse, which really enhances the comfort of the ships, especially when you're knife fighting, which can occur quite frequently when you're piloting the French destroyers, because they want to get up close and ambush destroyers with that main battery reload booster. And then last but not least, radial location helps do your job immensely. Helps you hunt destroyers and also not get surprised by any stealthy cruisers such as Minotaur, for example, at higher tier, or an Edinburgh, in the case of the Van Klin's matchmaking bracket. So yeah, this is the basic 13. Next I'd probably go RPF first, but that's just personal flavor. If you don't like RPF that much, go for extra marksman first and then use your last 4 points wherever you please. Don't recommend taking IFHE. The extra cruiser pen isn't really worth it. If you need to kill cruisers, just do it by setting them repeatedly on fire and farming your superstructure. The destroyer accuracy is good enough to do that, so that's the way I would do it. Anyhow, that'll be all for now. That was our Siroco quick review, and also, I guess, a brief rundown of general French destroyer playstyle, and I hope you enjoyed. I'll catch you all later. Cheers!